Well, good day, Lionhearts. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion, your beautiful pal Amy, and we are coming to you from northern Minnesota today. What are you up to today? Hope you're all doing well. We've had a great trip, and today we're going to go off and do a little sightseeing, and we're going to stop at an infamous place that I've heard of since a few years ago. Listening to a lot of podcasts, I heard about some legendary stories of this place. It's no longer Grandma B's, but we're going to show you what it was and tell you what Grandma B's was. Now when you hear Grandma B's, you probably think, Grandma's home cooking. No, it's not that kind of place. Days with Jordan the Lion and Amy begin now. Little never-ending story for you here. What was once Grandma B's bar is now Psycho Susie's Motor Lounge. It was shut down in 1984 for failure to pay taxes. But let me tell you a little bit of the history of this place. This was probably the toughest bar in wrestling. So this tiki lounge at one time was Grandma B's, and Grandma B's was one of the toughest biker bars in the area. Now at the time, in the early 80s, had a few bouncers that worked here that were legit tough guys and would have to break up and break down nightly fights. A bartender here named Eddie Sharkey had been a wrestler in the AWA since the early 60s, and he noticed that a lot of these guys had the talent to become wrestlers. So he decided to start his own wrestling operation in 1982. He called it the Pro Wrestling America organization, and he got a couple of the guys that were bouncers here to train under him to become wrestlers. Some of those notable names were Lenny Lane, Ravishing Rick Rude, Michael Hegstrand, Joe Laurinaitis, Barry Darsow, John Nord. Now, if those names may not ring a bell right away, Ravishing Rick Rude was Rick Rude, Michael Hegstrand and Joe Laurinaitis were the two men who would become Hawk and Animal, the Road Warriors. When they would go to WWF, they would become the Legion of Doom. John Nord was the Berserker for WWF. And Barry Darsow was not only the Repo Man, he had a few gimmicks, but he was Smash from the tag team Demolition. Now what's interesting about this is that these men went on, the Road Warriors went on to be one of the biggest tag teams, one of the best, most watched, biggest draw money tag teams of the 80s and early 90s, especially when they transitioned into WWF. Unfortunately, Michael Hegstrand had some substance abuse problems, and he ended up kind of ruining their tag team on a pay-per-view in WWF, and they got fired. And they would try and make some returns, but it just never was that successful after that. And he unfortunately ended up passing away at a younger age. Now, when they worked here, one of the big deals was that this was like such a rough place, and Michael Hegstrand and Ravishing Rick Rude, I've read in various places, were both guys that they loved to fight. I mean, they didn't shy away from a fight ever. I mean, they looked forward to it, so for them, this was kind of the perfect place. It's kind of crazy to get to see the infamous Grandma B's here, because so many wrestlers came out of this. Jesse the Body Ventura studied with Eddie Sharkey. Like I said, the Road Warriors, Ravishing Rick Rude. Now what's interesting, and it's really cool, was that I found out that one of the ways that these guys who would train wrestlers, people like Eddie Sharkey, was they would make a deal for the wrestler to give them a percentage of whatever the wrestler earned for the future years. That way they would always have money coming in. And this was a very honor system based thing, and I had heard that a lot of people didn't honor that with Eddie Sharkey at one time, and Eddie was really hard up on money, and someone told Ravishing Rick Rude, and Ravishing Rick Rude found out where Eddie Sharkey was going to be and showed up with a briefcase full of thousands of dollars worth of cash. I believe I heard it was $17,000 in cash to help Eddie Sharkey out. Now, as I understand, he has done everything from training people in the basement of a church to creating a mat out of railroad rails and a mat, and then he's created a a ring in the back of his garage. So the guy's been dedicated, he's been doing it for decades, and it's kind of cool to see where Grandma B's, all those wrestlers got their start, all those legit tough guys. Smash, Ravishing Rick Rude, Road Warriors, very cool. So Amy and I decided we're gonna go into this tiki lounge and check it out. We're gonna go see what Psycho Susie's is all about and where Grandma B's was. All right, take a look. Kind of cool, there's the bar. So Eddie Sharkey would have worked at the bar. And even though it's a totally different place, I love this. Just cool decor. Man, to imagine those days in the early 80s, how rough it would have been here. Does have a really cool view though. The back has view right on the river. What a cool place. So we went inside to get a drink, but they were actually doing some sort of thing where it's you could only have the option, you pay $40 a person and you have an hour and a half to eat and drink all you want. But we weren't super hungry or thirsty, so we decided to go down the street and get a little bite to eat down there. I made a new friend over here. Maybe not. All right, Amy, we got our food. You got a California burger with a, what is it, an Impossible Burger replacement this time?
I don't know.
Well, I think that's what they did. They gave you like an Impossible Burger, and I got the Reuben. So here we found a plaque that said Parker School originally was here in 1890 as a grade school. It consisted of 8 rooms until 1913. When additional 4 rooms were added, the name was changed to Robbinsdale Public School. It served as an elementary school until it was torn down in 1972. That used to be on this location, but this is what we came for. Robbinsdale High School. Now it's merged with a neighboring high school. It's no longer here. This was the former site. It was built in 1936. It served as a high school for the next 21 years, graduating over 4,000 students. It served as a junior high, administration building, and court from 1957 until 2004 when it was demolished. Now, on this site, numerous wrestlers went to this school. In fact, in just a few years span, you had Tom Zink, the Z-Man, who eventually was known as Mr. Minnesota. He was a bodybuilding champion. You had Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, Ravishing Rick Rude, Barry Darso, who was Smash in Demolition. John Nord went here, who was the Berserker. And also, famed announcer, Mean Gene Okerlund also went here.
It looks like an apartment complex.
Well, it is now. They tore down the old high school and now they have built up condominiums and apartments. Kind of sad to see because this was kind of known. I mean, Rick Rude was a football player here. Scott Simpson, who became Nikita Koloff, also went here. He was a football player here. This was a really famous school. In fact, it goes down to Minnesota because Minnesota is known for wrestling. Greg and Vern Gagne, Ric Flair, they were all from here, but Robbinsdale is known as the wrestling high school because for like a 3 or 4 year span, 7 or 8 great wrestlers came out of this. And Vern and Greg Gagne both went here. Vern Gagne was one of the biggest wrestlers of his day and then went on to train some of the biggest wrestlers, including Ric Flair, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, people like that. Now we're heading to the downtown area, kind of past it actually. We're going to go to South Minneapolis. Here we have the Cavalry Church, the very same church that Eddie Sharkey trained those early wrestlers when he started up his wrestling operation. So Rick Rude, the Road Warriors, Barry Darso, they would have all trained. Well, he didn't call it a school, he had called it a camp, and they would wrestle in the basement of this place on the hard concrete with just some light padding, like a few mats. They didn't have a ring or anything. Eddie said, yeah, it was pretty tough, but they got good quick. See if maybe we're lucky enough that the doors are open and we can go check out the basement. Well, the best I can probably do is show you the stairwell down to the downstairs. Right there. Walking around the side of the church to take a look. Looks like they have an art gallery in here now too. Well, unfortunately we couldn't get in, but there's a window to the basement, so it would have been down in there. This is like your happy place in Minnesota, isn't it? You love this place.
This restaurant's really good.
Okay, so we're addicted to this. This is brie curds with lingonberry ketchup.
And it's so good.
Yeah, lingonberries are Swedish, and they made the most amazing ketchup for it. And then we got spinach artichoke dip. That spinach artichoke dip is amazing.
Thank you so much.
Amy is trying the margarita pizza tonight. Look at that. Doesn't that look amazing? All right, my friends, we're gonna call it a night. I hope you enjoyed our adventures today in wrestling here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great night and goodbye.